the girl of his dreams, Dawn, and their children, Kim, Terry and Janine and their families, and Rod's siblings, Beryl, Peg, and somebody who's got a good name, Greg, like me. And on behalf of Dawn and the family, I want to extend our greetings to those who can't be here in person, particularly Terry's much-loved family in Queensland and all those who are watching online. Those of you who are in the church, in the foyer and out the back, can you just check that your little mobile device is actually on silent or turned off, please? The exits are through there and down the stairs or out the back. The toilets are across the foyer and down on the right. Ladies is the third door down and gents is around the corner. And there is food and drink afterwards. And Dawn and the family would really love if as many of you could stay as possible. Here comes a message.
We need a car moved.
If anybody's got a white Mazda 1GJP024, a white Mazda dual cab, could you just move it, please? Because somebody needs to get out if that's your car. A white Mazda 1GJP024. Thank you. So all of us are here, present in this space out the back of the building and online, to express our thankfulness at knowing and being known by Rod Jackson. We gather around Dawn and the family, and particularly not only their children, but the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, whom Rod liked to talk about when we were sitting around the table at Ellen and Ron's. For over a decade, I've heard from Ellen and Ron Ellard and from Ernst Stephen and his family about their great friends, the amazing Rod and Dawn Jackson. And finally last year I got to sit at table with them at Ellen Ellard's home and to share with them prayer and thoughts and a meal just before Christmas. And then this year, Rod and Dawn were at Ellen's for lunch and a home church that meets there. And part of that tradition is that we share a meal and we share in worship together and we take Holy Communion. And Rod, sitting right at the end of the table, says, you know, formal church hasn't been much on my agenda, Greg. Is this all right? I said, absolutely. And he said, but I'm keen to learn. And he was able to participate, but he also had that really Rod twinkle in his eye when he asked a couple of questions. And I sensed in Rod a man of deep personal value who in his own way walked the values of the man Jesus. And when Dawn and Terry came to plan today's service with me, they shared the list of songs that Rod had written down as the ones he wanted for his service. And the songs speak of Christian hope and faith and never fearing death. The song which was played as we entered the church with Rod's coffin, "This World Is Not My Home." And later, we'll hear more of Rod's practical, quiet Christian faith expressed in the songs he chose for today. The beautiful Peace in the Valley by Jim Reeves. And If Jesus Comes Tomorrow by Owen Mack. And On the Far Side of the Banks of Jordan by Tony Allen and Owen Mack. But first of all, let's just take a moment to, in our own minds, picture the Rod Jackson that we know and love. As friend and brother and husband, as dad and granddad and great-granddad. And just from the rush we've had to get here, let's just take a breath. And I want to use this poem for us just to centre ourselves. Breathe in me deep, that I might breathe and live. Hold me close, so that I might sleep soft, held by all you give. Come, kiss me, wind, and take my breath until you and I are one. And we will dance along the breeze until all death is gone. And no one knows that we exist, wrapped in each other's arms, except the one who blew the breath that hides me safe from harm. Come, kiss me, wind, and take my breath till you and I are one. And we will dance along the breeze until all death is gone. When we gather around Ellen and Ron's table out at Argyle, we quite often light a candle. And we're going to do that today. When we were gathered together, Rod and Dawn and the other people who were part of that home fellowship, we lit a candle that had been Ron Ellard's candle from his funeral. But today we light this candle. A little quiet reminder that love never stops. And the love of God for us never stops. And it might be as tiny as this little flame here, but it never stops. I want to lead you in prayer. Let us pray. Creator God, you are known in and through all creation. And every tribe and religion on earth has sought to name and communicate your reality. And in our lives, we have known you revealed most clearly in the man Jesus of Nazareth and his teaching. We've gathered today, in person and online, to celebrate the gift of Rodney Donald Jackson, a man known for his love of Dawn and their family, his work ethic, his commitment to friends and community. And in these moments that we share, as we hear some of the stories of Rod's life and see some of the photos from the family album and place Rosemary on his coffin, may we be united in the blessing that Rod has been to us and will continue to be. And when we leave here, Creator God, may we do so confident that Rod is already in your eternal presence at peace. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Ellen Ellard. Where are you? Here she is. Ellen's not going to read the poem that's listed in the order of service because she exercises her right to change her mind.
Thanks, Greg. For this one farmer, the worries are over. Lie down and rest your head. Your time has been a struggles enough. Put the tractor in the shed. Years were not easy, many downright hard, but your faith in God transcended. Put away your tools and sleep in peace. The fences have all been mended. You raised a fine family, worked the land well, and always followed the sun. Hang up the shovel inside the barn. Your work here on earth is done. A faith few possess led your journey through life, often a jagged and stormy way. The sun is setting, the cattle are bedded, and here now is the end of your day. Your love of God's soil has passed on to your kin. The stories flow like fine wine. Wash off your work boots in the puddles left by the blessed rain one final time. You always believed the good Lord would provide, and he always has somehow. Take off your gloves and put them down. No more sweat and worry for you now. Your labour is done. Your home is now in heaven. No more must you wait. Your legacy lives on, your love of the land, and we now will close the gate.
And I invite you to share the words of Psalm 23 with me. They'll be on all the screens. Let's read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Friends, death is something that none of us can escape. It follows life as surely as night follows day, as winter follows... Which season? Autumn. Yes. And if we're fortunate, we will get to experience the wonder of old age after the wildness of our youth. Every year, it amazes me how people make preparations so that they won't suffer when the cold of winter bites or when the heat of summer arrives. Well, in here we've got our air conditioning cranked up to the max. It's going full bore so that we don't all expire together. But when it comes to winter, we turn the heat around and then everybody goes, "Aah." People try and put aside funds so that they don't have to suffer in their old age. And there are even a few people around who are actually preparing for the greater certainty of death. As we know, Rod was one of those people, like his dear friend Ernst Stephen, whom we farewelled in this place just last Friday. Rod wasn't afraid of death. And yet for some people, death is something to be feared. It's to be dreaded, or it's seen as a blankness in life. Death has even come to be seen by some people as unnatural. I get a bit worried about those people who want to freeze their brains or their bodies. Gosh, when I get to my end, I will have had enough in this one. I don't want this one brought back, folks. Christianity is not the only main world religion that affirms that life does not stop when our breathing ceases. Buddhists hold the view that anyone who thinks that our lives end with death are seriously deluded. Buddhism recognises that everything in the universe and everything that happens is part of that vast living web of interconnection. The vibrant energy that we call life flows throughout the universe and has no beginning and no end. Life is a continuous, dynamic process of change. We learn and grow and change through life. Why then should one of us be an exception? And the view of the man Jesus was very similar. His stories are full of images of life and death, of beginnings and endings, all connected by the love of God, that unnameable presence that we say God, or the Creator, or the Divine One. Jesus' stories and his teachings call all humans to recognise that we are interconnected, that we're family, and that gender, relationship status, wealth or poverty really don't matter in one iota. Each one of us is called to make the world a better place for those who come after us. And I think that's what Rod has done. We need all of us to face life with our natural lifespan and leave behind a better, kinder place than we started with. We now know that stars and galaxies are born, live out their natural lifespan and die. I love going out into the bush, away from all the city lights, and just being in nature and seeing how the sky comes down, almost so you can touch it. And then you look at those stars in the sky and it really does my head in to think that some of the light that I'm seeing actually finished years and years and years ago, and yet still is there, making a difference. And our purely physical perspective, our bodies are made from the same materials and chemical compounds as the distant galaxies. In this sense, we are all literally children of the galaxies. Did you know, just touch yourself for a minute, did you know that there are 60 trillion individual cells keeping you alive at the moment? 60 trillion individual cells? And it's the life force that harmonises an infinitely, this complex, mind-boggling number of cells. Each moment, an untold number of cells are dying and being replaced by the birth of new cells. It's just one way that we experience the life cycle of birth and death. On a very practical level, death is necessary. If people live forever, I think they'd actually start longing for death. And without death, we face a whole new array of problems, from overpopulation to people having to live forever in their bodies that are tired and worn out. Death makes room for renewal and regeneration in every part of life. So there's no reason for us to fear death or to hate or seek to banish it from our lives. It's really sad when our loved ones die. It leaves an unimaginable gaping hole. But it's part of the life cycle that all of us are on together. To die well, one must have lived well. And all those who know and love Rod Jackson, you will know how well he lived, how well he loved you and took you as his friends, how much he laughed and enjoyed spending time with his family. The ancient writer in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes, says, there's a time for everything. We all end up in the same place. We all came from dust, and we'll all end up as dust. Nobody knows for sure that the human spirit rises to heaven or that the animal spirit sinks into the earth. So says the writer of Ecclesiastes, I've made up my mind. There's nothing better for us, men and women, than to have a good time in whatever we do. That's our lot. And today, we're celebrating that wonderful gift of life, of Rod Jackson. Now, the family are going to come and share in their tributes and eulogies. Don't you get embarrassed when your phone goes off in the middle of things? It's normally me who does that. Come on down. Kim, Terry, Janine, Luke, Lauren and Kate. Use both the lecterns and away you go.
Welcome everybody. What a large turnout. Dad would be absolutely stoked to see all this big crowd here with former or farmers that are around him, family, friends. Thank you. On behalf of Mum and the family, I'd like to thank you and welcome you to send farewell to Dad. First, I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of Mum and the family here today to celebrate the great life of Rod Jackson. Dad did have a great life and often said in his later years he was one of the lucky ones. Dad was highly respected and looked up to by all his family and friends. Even at an early age, he had strong principles, fairness and work ethics. Dad was born Rodney Donald Jackson on the 20th of April 1937 to Bill and Dolly Jackson. He was a good son and a great brother to Beryl, Peggy and Greg. Dad had a great and adventurous life growing up on Carisbrook Farm. Dad cherished his boyhood on the farm, just being a boy, rabbit trapping, hunting, riding his bike and also fishing in the Preston River with old Pop Padden, which he enjoyed. Dad rode his bike to Charlie's Creek every morning to catch the bus to Donnybrook School. Dad also had to help on the farm at a young age, milking cows on a cold, frosty morning before school. Beryl said she used to help Rod milking, but always stood behind him because he always tried to squirt milk all over her. But always, Dad always loved playing cricket. He loved his cricket and his football in the early times. Once Dad was old enough, he got his driver's licence and enjoyed hanging out with his mates. You can imagine the mischief they got up to. Dad, Gilly, Bowie and the Kirkies. Once Beryl and Peggy wanted Dad to drive them to the picture show. And they'd already pumped up Greg to say that if Dad refused, start crying, because Greg was a lot younger than Dad. So Beryl and Peggy asked Dad, they wanted to go to the picture show in Donnybrook. Dad had other things he wanted to do. So as soon as he said no, Greg started bawling. They went to the picture show. Dad and his mates started going to the dances when they were driving. That's where he met Dawn Ratcliffe, our mum. Dad made many trips to the Ferguson Valley, courting Mum. They married on the 4th of July 1959, where they become husband and wife, best friends and soulmates for 63 years and 8 months. As newlyweds, they decided to head out to the wheat belt for a different lifestyle. Farm handing. First stop was Pathara on a wheat and sheep farm. Then after that on to Pringery, where I was born in 1960, and then Terry in 1961. We then moved on to Dandarrigan, where Janine was born in 1964. Mum and Dad making many long life friends along the way through the cricket and the socialising of that wheat belt lifestyle. One of the very good friends that they did meet was Earl and Jean Oliver. Earl's passed away since, but Jean has made the big trek down from Bindoon in the 90s, and we thank you, Jean. We then went on to Badgingarra, where Dad also learnt to shear and many times went away shearing to earn more money. In 1968, Dad took his family home to Donnybrook. We lived in an old house on Ken and Joan Fowler's farm, Rosedale. Dad and Mum worked for Fowlers and the Keels with potatoes and pears and general farming, while also growing their own fruit, their own vegetables. They both worked very hard, also bringing up a family. In 1970, Dad and Mum bought the property we still live on today. We still live on today off Ian and Bernadette Humphreys. It was an inspiration and a schooling for us kids to see Dad and Mum work so bloody hard together, side by side, to make it work, growing potatoes and summer veggies, as well as some shearing. Money was tight and there was no flash machinery to make farming easy for them. As hard as it could get, us kids were provided well for and never went without. Dad, you're a legend. All the hard work took its toll on Dad over the years. and he suffered a bad back and crook knees, along with average vegetable prices. Dad decided to quit farming and to sell real estate. Dad sold real estate for many years for Frank, which was David Regan, and then First National. He worked with Frank alongside with John Campbell and myself and Bob Browning. And I had a phone call from John Campbell, I know he won't mind me saying it. He rang the other night, and John's comment was that Dad was the most generous man he'd ever met. John was selling real estate for a large firm in Bunbury while he was getting set up on his own farm, and Dad approached him to see if he wanted to join the group. And Dad, being very generous, offered John to sell together and share the commission. And John said, "You can't do that, Rod. You've got all the context, the contacts, the local knowledge. Why would you do that?" And Dad said, "Oh no, you'll work as hard as I will, and we'll share the commission." And John always remembered that as being a very generous man. Dad was also known for his honesty, knowledge, while selling real estate, and he never varied or weighed off the total honesty for real estate. He then went on to sell for a while with B&W Independent, and following a few years of that, he then retired. Back in 1990, he also took up the sport of darts. He loved his darts. And he became good at it and played A grade. And quite a few of the guys that he would play darts with were a lot younger than him. So after the darts, it'd inevitably end up at the Bustle or the Burley, getting into a late night. Then they'd duck around at Pat's Snack Bar for a burger. And this particular night, the US Army were in, and they were around at Pat's Snack Bar getting a burger. And we know what they're like, some of them are a bit full of themselves. And this particular young sailor, he was a little muscle-bound guy. There was a big block of concrete on the ground. And he was bragging how he could pick this concrete up. And you could tell he'd done years of weightlifting. So anyway, he marched there and he got the concrete up so far and dropped it, he couldn't lift it. So the old man, having a few beers under his belt, said, "I'll give it a go, I reckon I can lift that." And the sailor looked at Dad and didn't. Dad was nowhere near as big as this guy, but he didn't realise that all the hard work that Dad did, he didn't need to work in the gym to get strong. So he bet him $50. And in the end, Dad got this concrete and he got it up, and they all agreed he'd lifted it. Then he's struggling around with it. Didn't know where to put it, so he dropped it into the bin, and it smashed all the steel bin at Snack Bar. So the lady at the Snack, she said, "I've had an absolute gutful of you Donnybrook dart players, I'm ringing the cops." So they all jumped in their car and took off back to Donnybrook. Dad also hadn't done a lot of camping. He was always a bit busy for it, and it was great that his brother Greg decided to take him out camping up into the Pilbara and then also onto the Kimbleys. So Dad had never done this before. And so along he went, and Greg was saying the first night they got to Payne's Fine. And they're all tired, and they pulled into the bush there, or the truck bay, and Dad wanted to know where you could have a shower. And Greg said, "No, we don't get a shower till we get into the next town. That might be Newman before we have a shower." He said, "All you just got to do is wait." And so they were getting ready for bed, and Greg went around one side and he come back ready for bed with his jocks and his navy singlet on. And he couldn't believe it. The old man come around the corner ready for bed too, and he had his Pooh Bear pyjamas on. Greg said to Dad, "You can't wear them. You've got to take them off, mate. We'll end up at Tom Price or somewhere, and we're doing the washing, and there's two guys camping together and one's wearing Pooh Bear pyjamas." So in his retirement, he also enjoyed the farm. It was a hobby farm. He enjoyed the people around him, he enjoyed the family, the grandkids walking through the paddock, having cups of tea or Milo with Mum and Dad. And he loved the great grandkids. He loved all his friends around him. As you can see today, there's just a mass of you, and again, we appreciate it. He loved in his later year, he didn't go that far, and he was getting, and he made particular mention, and he loved the company, the people that called in regularly. I mean, he loved everyone, but these particular people called in regularly, and he loved their visits. And I know Dick Gill's passed now, but Dick used to call in every Wednesday and spend time with Dad, and they reminisced, and the stories got thicker and longer. Morgie, he had great time for Morgie. He used to call in every fortnight and spend some time with Dad and Mum. And Wayne Oliver and Nick Murat also spent a lot of time with Dad. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Wayne for all he did up at the hospital for Dad and Mum while he was crook, bringing up a thermos for Mum and all sorts of things. So that was great. Yeah, the winding up, I suppose. As kids, we agreed that Dad really set the principles for our life. He was very strict on work ethics. He was, work ethics and just to be a good person. And one of the words he loved was fairness. He liked everything to be fair and equal. And he realised and said it that, it's not fair and equal in this world all the time. But he said he tried to make it fair and equal around his own environment as much as he could. Dad, we're going to miss you. You're a hero. Love you. And we'll see you in another time. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to the celebration of Dad's great life. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Terry, Dad's eldest daughter from Queensland. We grew up as kids in a very loved and happy home. Dad taught us the important rules in life. To be honest and polite were his most important ones. A memorable moment for me was the day Dad pegged out on 154 to get his Donnybrook dart team over the line to win the grand final. Dad's team and mates celebrated at the Donnybrook pub, which lasted a couple of days. I don't think Mum was too impressed. Another story we remember that didn't end well was while living at Rosedene, the Fowler's property, we were asked to go and chop chips for the copper. There was a big old shade house made of timber slats. Kim and I thought they'd make for easy chopping. So took to pulling off and cutting into chips. We thought we'd done a great job until Dad turned up and saw the big hole in the corner of the shade house. We took off. Dad was chasing us in his pyjamas. While in pursuit, he slipped in a puddle, which made him even madder. By the time we got back to the house, Dad had a twitchy stick of bougainvillea, spikes and all. Did we cop it? I left Donnybrook in 1984 to travel, then met my late husband Neil and made my life in Queensland, where I still live today. Dad was always a wonderful granddad to my 3 children, who always looked forward to Mum and Dad's visits to see us in Queensland. Over the years, with their many trips to Queensland, they made lifelong friends. Dad left a lasting impression on those he met in our small community, and so many of them have sent their love today. In 2003, they took the opportunity to drive over with their good friends Uncle Ron and Auntie Ellen Allard. On his visits, Dad would love to go fishing with my husband Neil and grandson Kurt, more often than not, getting caught up at the Brewer pub, which often gets called the crab pot. Once you get in, you can't get out, which happened to Dad on numerous occasions after one too many 4X beers and Bundaberg rums. Unfortunately, the last couple of years with Dad's Parkinson's, Dad and Mum weren't able to make the trip, but I was very grateful for their last visit to support me 12 months after losing Neil. Dad will be sadly missed by us all. Love you, Dad. I'm now going to read out a message from Dad's grandchildren in Queensland, Candace, Kurt and Holly. Our dearest Gundy, we are sorry we are unable to attend your funeral today, but we are very grateful to make it to WA last week to say goodbye to you before you passed. You also got to meet your newest great-grandkids, Tex and Charlie. On one of our visits to see you, we sat holding your hand, not saying much, as we let you rest. Unprompted, you said to us, "I've given life a good crack. I'm a very lucky man," and that is undoubtedly true. As kids, Gundy was always playful and full of cheek, telling us tales of how he got his scars, turning crocodiles inside out, and teaching us rude nursery rhymes. We remember one night, Gundy and our granddad Smiley getting home from the pub after a few too many drinks and sitting at the bench, hiccuping in unison. As we got older, we could appreciate how wise Gundy was and how he could say the most profound thing with just a few words. On his last trip to visit us in Queensland, we had lost Dad 12 months prior. It was such a gift to have Gundy speak so openly and fondly about Dad. We stayed in Bam and Gundy's home while we visited, a home filled to the brim with photos and memories of a beautiful life. We watched as he was visited by people who loved him dearly, and he was cared for by the love of his life, Bam. We spent time with families, aunties, uncles, cousins and close friends. It is so clear to us all of Gundy's family have been influenced by his kind, positive and genuine nature. While we are so heartbroken to have lost our Gundy, we know his life will live on in the people closest to him. To be part of a witness to the life he and Bam had created and to have him as a granddad has been a great privilege. We love you, mate. Rest easy and say hello to Dad for us. Thank you.
I could not be prouder to call Rodney Jackson my father and my friend. A beautiful, gentle, honest and caring man that appreciated and respected everybody. Everyone started equally in Dad's eyes. Where they finished up after that was up to them. He would say, "That's nice, that's great, thanks very much," never a whinge. Always look on the bright side, and that was my Dad. He was all for a fair go and that a hard day's work should be rewarded. He loved to laugh, and we laughed a lot as a family. We will keep laughing, Dad. He always offered Rob, Kate, Jack and I a lot of help and encouragement and praise both in business and in leisure. Our children adored him. The respect and care and love he showed Mum was beautiful and was returned tenfold. We love you, Dad, and we were blessed to have you in our lives for so long. Your kind spirit will remain with us forever. Thank you.
Gundy, how privileged we feel to have grown up living next door to you on the farm. We both remember being your shadow. Wherever you went, we were there, following you, whether on the tractor, the paddock, or in the patch, trying to be your little helper, probably making things harder. When Bam worked weekends at Toohey Lodge, we would have sleepovers at your place, listening to Rodney Rood, Kevin Bloody Wilson and Colin Eddick before bedtime. Also learning your rude poems that you taught us, known as Down in the Valley and Jonathan Milked the Bull. One of the good things about living next door was being able to come home from school and straight over to the veranda to enjoy a little port with you and Bam. Age we will not specify. You are also known for your generosity, especially when I convinced you to give Bam a surprise trip to Bali, but for me to go and not you. And also taking Luke to Queensland for his 18th and 21st birthdays.
Not many grandkids can say their granddad did an all-nighter with them and their friends to see out the year 2000. Still drinking rum, playing cricket at 6 in the morning. When you eventually got to bed, Bam kicked you out for smelling like rum. So back out to come help clean up. When you weren't on the shovel digging trenches, you were out the bush with Boomer and the boys, Mac and Billy, when the opportunity arose, getting loads of wood. You really loved being out there with the boys. Get on the saw.
Not only were we lucky to have grown up next door to you, but so were your great-grandchildren when the play house was built. Mac, Billy and Charlie loved the time spent with you doing jobs on the farm and the endless Milos and chats. We will all miss those chats. to our amazing Gundy. What a legend.
Thank you, family, for sharing those wonderful memories and your very real tears and pauses in that are just proof of the deep love that you have for your dad and granddad. We're going to turn our eyes to the screens and again, the two pieces of music that Rod has chosen, Peace in the Valley and If Jesus Comes Tomorrow, will accompany these pictures that have come from the family photo treasures.
Well, I'm tired and so weary, but I must go along till the Lord comes and calls me away. Where the morning is bright and the Lamb is the light, and the night is as fair as the day. There will be peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley for me, oh Lord, I pray. There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me. Well, the flowers will be blooming and the grass will be green and the skies will be clear and serene. Where the sun ever beams in this valley of dreams, and no clouds there will ever be seen. There will be peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley for me, oh Lord, I pray. There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me. Well, the bear will be gentle and the wolf will be tame, and the lion shall lay down by the lamb, and the beast from the wild shall be led by a child, and I'll be changed from this creature that I am. There will be peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley for me, oh Lord, I pray. There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me someday.
If Jesus comes tomorrow to spend some time with you, would you answer all his questions or lie to hide the truth? Would you welcome him with open arms or even let him in? If Jesus comes tomorrow, walk then. If Jesus calls your number, could you leave today? Are you ready to lay down your worldly goods and walk away? Would it take a month of Sundays just to tell him of your sin? If Jesus comes tomorrow, what then? If the sky turns black as midnight in the middle of the day, and somehow you knew that Jesus would soon be on his way, would you have to beg forgiveness, or could you reach out and take his hand? If Jesus comes tomorrow, what then?
Thank you for sharing those lovely images of the man you love so much with us. We're going to express our thanks now for Rod's life, and then I'll invite you to share in the Lord's Prayer, and the words will be on the screen. So here today we've gathered in love to celebrate the life of Rod Jackson. And while there is real sorrow in our hearts and tears are falling freely, that's so good and so real, because our hearts are broken because the one we have loved is no longer physically with us. The family have expressed their thankfulness for the gift of Rod's life, which has touched us all. And we've confronted the fact that life ends. Yet we also know there is a power that's stronger than death, and that is love. Love joins us together as life partners, as parents, as children, as siblings, and as friends and neighbours. And to be touched by love is to experience the transforming power of God. The anguish of parting can't destroy this most real of realities. A love that was once born can never die, for it has become part of us. It's woven into our DNA, into the fabric of our being. And among those who are here today, those who are online, love has joined lives together. Friendship has bonded us. Joys have been shared. Sorrows have been born together. And they've shaped the history of all of you who are here. The relationships of love and friendship don't have to unravel at death. But today we've borne witness to Rod's life, who now in death blesses us with the spirit in which he lived his life. In the Beatitudes of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus describes those who mourn as saying, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." We're mourning because we've been blessed to walk alongside Rod for part of our life's journey. And we're mourning because we've been graced with the gifts of Rod's love and friendship. Blessed are we who mourn, because although Rod's living presence is gone, we know that the love he shared with us will never die. And that now, that love, that friendship, keeps on inside of each of us. We pray, and then I'll invite you to share the Lord's Prayer. Lord of all kindliness, Lord of all grace, your hands are swift to welcome and your arms to embrace. Be there at our homing and give us, we pray, your love in our hearts, Lord, at the eve of the day. Lord of all gentleness, Lord of all calm, your voice is contentment and your presence is balm. Be in our sleeping and give us, we pray, your peace in our hearts, Lord, at the end of our day. And I invite you to join me in sharing the words of the Lord's Prayer or the Our Father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the power... I got it wrong. Let's start again. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. I worked in aged care a number of years ago, and that was one of the things that the residents in the aged care facility would always laugh at me about, because I actually needed the words of the Lord's Prayer to be able to get through it. We're going to invite you now to come and place some rosemary on Rod's coffin. Rosemary, because that's actually Dawn's first name. She's Rosemary Dawn. It's also a symbol of remembrance, and it's a way in which we can pay our last respects. We can just come and say thank you to Rod. As we put the rosemary on his coffin, we say our final farewells, and we acknowledge that it is his wish from here today that his body be taken for cremation. I'm going to ask the family, just the family, to come first. And then when the family are finished, we're going to ask the people who are way down the back to come first. So all those people who are down the back and out the front, you get to come down first, and then our ushers will kind of direct you from the back to the front. There'll be plenty of music for us to play. Please don't approach the family. In Western Australia, some people don't think the road rules apply to them. It never surprises me when I'm towing our caravan down the road and the speed limit says 100, and then there are these people who know better and they go past towing their caravans at 120. So today the road rules in here are, when you come up to place the rosemary on Rod's coffin, don't go near the family, just let them be. They need to be with themselves. There's plenty of time for you to greet them afterwards. And besides which, you'll create a traffic block. So we're going to ask people to come up both sides. Let me show you the plan. I hope it works. Okay, so if you come up the middle here, you'll either come to one of the attendants here, take your rosemary, put it on the coffin, and then go down the outside. Now, I know we've got people close to the outside, but if you can just scoot out of the way a bit so we can have a round robin, that would be really good. If you need a wheelie walker or a wheelchair, just take your time. We're not in a rush here. Okay? And we'll do the same. As you come up and go round, go back out that door and back in, around here, and then the row that's in front of the tech desk, it's a bit wider, you can go back across there and round. Thanks, Alex. Family, please come first.
Hey, true blue, don't say you've gone. Say you've knocked off for a smoker and you'll be back later on. Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Give it to me straight, face to face. Are you really disappearing? Just another dying race. Hey, true blue. True blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight?
Folks from down the back, if you'd like to come on down, please. Those who are standing up first, and then those in the other rows.
I'm asking you, hey, true blue, can you bear the load? Will you tie it up with wire just to keep the show on the road? Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Will be fading. Is your heart still there? If they sell us out like sponge cake, do you really care? Hey, true blue. True blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo?
Down to the second back row.
Is it standing by your mate when she's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight?
Get straight down.
Or will she be right?
Second back row.
True
Then come around this way.
blue. Hey, true blue, don't say you're gone. Say you've knocked off for a smoker, and you'll be back later on. Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Give it to me straight, face to face. Are you really disappearing? Just another dying race. Hey, true blue. True blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Hey, true blue, can you bear the load? Will you tie it up with wire just to keep the show on the road? Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Be fading. Is your heart still there? If they sell us out like sponge cake, do you really care? Hey, true blue. True blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when she's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight?
Want me to hold that?
Or will she be right? True blue.
So you can go that way or that way. Either way you can go. Yep, you can. Either way.
This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. I have a loving mother just over in glory land, and I don't expect to stop until I shake her hand. She's waiting now for me in heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just over in glory land we'll live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting victory. Their songs of sweetest praise drift back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore.
Is there anybody in the foyer who hasn't been in yet?
this world anymore. This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. I have a loving mother just over in glory land.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're able to stand, I invite you to do so, please. And so after all the stories and the pictures, after having our chance to listen to the music that Rod has chosen for today, we come to the moment of farewell. Today we choose to move forward in our lives in peace. When we love someone, we risk the pain of parting. But to choose not to love is never to live. And the grief which we experience now is the honouring of that love and friendship. Rod, your life we honour, and though you've struggled with health over the last few years, it's still really hard to accept that you are no longer physically with us. But we cherish the gift of all the memories we have of you. In grief at your death, and in gratitude for your life and for the privilege of sharing it with you, we commit your body to the elements, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, as we commit your very being to all that is eternal. The poet Khalil Gibran wrote in his book called The Prophet, "For what is to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountaintop, then shall you begin to climb. And when the earth claims your limbs, then you shall truly dance." May the rising of the sun bring you new hope every day. May the moon gently restore you by night. May the rain in its season wash away your tears, and may the breeze blow new joy into your being. And all the days of this life may you walk gently through this land and know its ancient peace. And the blessing of God, who was and is and always shall be, is with you and with all whom you love in this life and in the life to come. Amen. Pallbearers, if you'd assemble and follow Terry's instructions, please. There'll be a piece of music played as we exit from the church, and then when we farewell Rod from the church premises, you're invited to return inside and share refreshments with Dawn and the family.
I believe my steps are growing wearier each day. Still I've got a journey on my mind. Lures of this old world have ceased to make me want to stay. My one regret is leaving you behind. But I'll be waiting on the far side banks of Jordan. I'll be sitting drawing pictures in the sand. And when I see you coming, I will rise up with a shout and come running through the shallow waters, reaching for your hand.
If it proves to be His will that I am first to cross, somehow I've a feeling it will be. When it comes your time to travel, likewise don't feel lost, for I will be the first one that you'll see.
And I'll be waiting on the far side banks of Jordan. I'll be sitting drawing pictures in the sand. And when I see you coming, I will rise up with a shout and come running through the shallow waters, reaching for your hand.
You did a great job on you guys.
Through this life we've labored hard to earn our meager share. It's brought us trembling hands and failing eyes.
So I'll just rest here on the shore and turn my eyes away till you come and we'll see paradise. And I'll be waiting.
Folks, welcome to follow us out and Rod go down the street, or you can,
I'll be sitting drawing
but refreshments will be on shortly.
And when I see you coming, I will rise up with a shout and come running through the shallow waters, reaching for your hand. And I'll be waiting on the far side banks of Jordan. I'll be sitting drawing pictures in the sand. And when I see you coming, I will rise up with a shout and come running through the shallow waters, reaching for your hand. And I'll be running through the shallow waters, reaching for your
Have a lovely family.
hand.